The defenders of Stalingrad had withstood 700 fierce attacks. 2 million men had been engaged in the great battle. On the 2nd of February, the last volley was fired. Quiet reigned in the city for the first time in 200 days. The enemy was completely routed and a mass surrender began. This was the way they stood when Hitler sent them to a criminal war. And this was how they now stood before the Soviet people. This is the way they received their Iron Crosses after Paris. And these were the crosses they got in Soviet Russia. This was how Hitler's crack troops advanced to the east. And this was the way they left the banks of the Volga. Soldiers gave themselves up. Officers surrendered. Hitler's arrogant generals, the executors of their Führer's insane plans, surrendered too. The commander of the 6th Army, Field Marshal von Paulus, also surrendered. Endless columns of prisoners. The Soviet forces smashed 5 fascist armies in the fighting between November 19th and February 2nd. Germany lost 33 divisions and 3 brigades completely. 16 divisions had lost more than half their men. 91,000 enemy soldiers and officers surrendered. During the last days of the battle, the Nazis left an enormous graveyard of tanks, artillery, planes, motor vehicles, and armored carriers. These fighting machines had covered the roads of vanquished Europe, on the ground and in the air. Now, there were heaps of scrap metal lying at the feet of the victors. Never in the history of warfare had a huge army suffered a defeat like this. The great battle on the Volga ended in a brilliant victory for the Soviet troops and was the turning point of the Second World War. The Soviet victory was celebrated joyously. Red Army soldiers, officers, and generals gathered on the city square surrounded by ruins. Khrushchev, member of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party's Central Committee, spoke on behalf of the party and all the Soviet people as he congratulated the victors and spurred them on to the final defeat of the enemy. Now that the fascists had been defeated on the Volga, the Soviet forces advanced westward. The dawn of victory over fascism could be seen in the fires of this great battle. The Volga, the Kursk Bulge, the Dnieper, the Vistula, the Oder. The routed German armies kept on retreating until the inevitable happened. The Soviet army took Berlin. Hitler Germany surrendered unconditionally. Among the fighting men who stormed Berlin were tank crews that had smashed the Hitlerites on the Volga. These were soldiers who had covered the entire road from the banks of the Russian River to the Elbe. And now, take a final look at the hero city as it looked, ghastly but proud, when the battle was over. This is a story to tell your children and your grandchildren. The Soviet people had to pay a heavy price for this decisive victory on the Volga. No better monument could have been conceived than present-day Volgograd. The Soviet people do not bear ill will, but looking at what they have built up, can you ever forget the ruins and injuries of war? The memory of the immortal exploit at Stalingrad will never be erased. This was an exploit of another kind, an exploit by building workers. They found the ruins of the old tractor plant and gave it. It was they who made an old dream come true and connected the Volga and the Don. They harnessed the Volga and channeled it into turbines. But we will never forget that this flourishing land on the Volga was once crimson with the blood of our fathers and brothers. We will never forget. The city of builders and heroes received many tokens of admiration. President Roosevelt sent this scroll on behalf of the American people. This symbol of victory was a gift from the King of England. A battle shield was sent by the Emperor of Ethiopia. The seal of Coventry was a fraternal gift from the British town, which also suffered the horrors of war. Zhou Enlai, Premier of the State Council of the Chinese People's Republic, sent this bas-relief. A memorial medal was a gift from the Defense Said. Visitors from all parts of the world bow their heads in memory of the heroes of this battle. A delegation from France. Envoys of People's Korea. State leaders of Indonesia. The Federative People's Republic Slavia. Representatives of the people of India. Glory to the hero city on the Volga.